Hello and welcome to Sophie & Co. Me, Sophie Shepard-Natze. NSA spying on millions of phones, including those of 35 world leaders, has been called unacceptable by some of America's closest allies. That's as even more leaks are expected to surface, released by Edward Snowden before he went into hiding in Russia. What drives the governments in their actions? Can societies do without them? Today, we're talking to an anarchist.
As governments struggle to make decisions and find solutions, leaks reveal they don't often practice what they preach. Representatives of the people, do they really care for the common good? Do they really value improving the life of the public? Or would the people be better off without the power-hungry?
Our guest today is Jeff Monson, American mixed martial arts fighter and a self-proclaimed anarchist. Jeff, it's great to have you in the studio today.
Thanks for having me, Sophie.
So I want to start with the latest NSA leaks and about the fact that everyone found out US was spying on everybody, including their closest allies like Germany, France, 35 countries altogether. What do you think they were looking for there?
I think, it's just a power. I think as a general citizen of the United States, informed, I realize that the United States is spying on everyone. Why wouldn't they? Because it's a, power struggle. They want to, it's about economics and, where Germany's going to put their money, where, companies are going here, where companies are going there. So it's not, I don't think it's about, military, how we have the old Cold War thinking like, oh, they're going to bomb us or we're going to bomb them, or where they put in their submarines. I think it's more of economics that are involved in the spying.
So what happened right after the leaks is that the countries that were spied on came on and said it's outrageous. But that's about it. Do you think they should do something more than just say it's outrageous about them being spied on?
I think they're spying as well. I think it's, this is my opinion. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I just think these countries are constantly, vying for power in certain regions. And, they might call the United States their friend. And economically, they are friends and trading partners. But, if you're looking for an advantage, you're going to take any advantage you can get when you're in the world of capitalism and trying to, support your companies.
So you think all sides are being kind of sly?
Yeah, of course.
I grew up in America. I think it's a great country. But do you believe that America is exceptional? Do you believe in American exceptionalism in a sense that it can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, to whomever it wants?
Well, that's a very good question. I believe before, American. If you said talked about American exceptionalism, people in America would say, no, we're not like this. We're out for freedom and democracy, and we have to be involved in certain wars or have military presence in certain areas because we're looking out for the world as a whole, not just America. But now that's changed. The climate's changed, and to say you're, especially in the Republican side of the sphere, if you don't say you're American exceptionalism, it's seen as a down thing, and they're actually criticizing Obama for not having American exceptionalism.
Well, it was actually President Obama that said in his speech, and he spoke about the American exceptionalism. That's where I got it from, actually.
Yeah, well, they're criticizing him for not being American enough and looking out for American interests enough and thinking globally. And, especially Republicans, not to just bash on them, because this is kind of a universal thing in the United States now, is that we have this, going back to the 1800s, this manifest destiny idea, but now it's not just North America, it's the world. We have, not only do we have to police the world, but I just saw a thing. We have a military base, some sort of base, in 135 out of the 190 UN registered countries. I mean, that's crazy. And most of these countries, of course, are our friends, at least economically. So why do we need so many bases worldwide? We're an empire, and to say we're not is not true.
So you're saying Republicans are more keen on emphasizing an American exceptionalism, and they actually blame Obama for not being American enough. What do you think? Is he not American enough?
I believe that, to be an American, like these days, that you have, I think it's just, you have that pride, not so much a nationalistic pride, but like a worldwide pride. Like we're in the United States, not just a world power, we are the world power, and what we say goes. And religiously, economically, morally, we believe that we're correct, and that the world should abide by kind of the rules and the standards that we set.
But do you believe that the world actually needs a role model, someone who could police it in some sort, or everyone should do their own thing?
Well, my mom used to say, like, if you say something, you got to walk. If you walk the walk, you got to talk. Or talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. Everything that we say, we don't do. We have an illegal base in Guantanamo. We have, the UN said, don't invade Iraq. We invaded Iraq anyway. So we do what we want to do, and like I said, that's where American exceptionalism comes into full play, is that we're going to do the things that make the United States better, or make our corporations in a better situation in the world economy, and that's just the way it is. And if that happens to agree with other countries, that's just frosting on the cake. But if it doesn't, it's not going to stop us from doing it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that you actually advocate healthcare as affordable healthcare as a basic need for every human being.
Of course.
Obamacare is about that, affordable healthcare. No? Do you like the whole concept of Obamacare?
Yeah, Obamacare is, it's got some good points and bad points. What was originally intended has been torn down and shredded and cut and pasted, and what we have now is nothing what I envision for healthcare for everybody.
But it's better than nothing, no?
Yeah, it's better than nothing. But unfortunately, what you have is businesses are actually cutting, the hours of employees, or changing benefits, or firing people totally so they don't have to pay for healthcare. So it's actually hurting just as many people as it's helping. And another thing is, physically being required to have health insurance under the administration of the government, telling you if you don't have insurance, we're going to fine you. It's illegal not to have insurance. That's taking away some civil liberties as well. So,
Jeff, I want to talk a little bit about your views in a global sense, because I know you're a self-proclaimed anarchist, like we've said in the beginning, but your type of anarchy is sort of justice for all. And you don't like governments. You believe that people should govern themselves. But who'd be providing the justice?
People can provide their own justice. People in groups and in communes and togetherness. If you want to be part of society, there's no requirement to be part of society other than participating. If you want to participate, then you need to work, and you need to abide by the rules that we as a whole agree on. Hey, we can't go murdering each other. We can't go taking from each other. But look at crimes. They estimate over 90% of crimes are economically related anyway. So imagine a society where you take out over 90% of the crimes, or the need for these crimes. That I can live with, having to, make some alterations or changes in order to live with other people, knowing that most of the crime is being taken away and we're living together.
But what you call economic crimes in prehistoric times would be like crimes for survival,
Right.
Fight for survival. They didn't have money then, but they were fighting for food or to survive. So the human nature hasn't changed. You can take the economic crimes away, but for someone to actually be self-governed, it would take a lot of discipline and responsibility. And do you really believe that human beings are ready for that? I mean, do you actually have an example, a historic example, where humans were able to govern themselves without a leader?
I mean, the Midwest Native Americans, they had chiefs, but there was no written law. There was no, government. There was no, they had these rules that they decided amongst themselves, but they were really unsaid and unwritten rules. And to live in that society, you follow these rules. And the shame you would feel by disrespecting one of the rules or someone else in society was enough to govern the own people. Right now, you talked about prehistoric times. The most important social instinct we have is working together, because if you try to take meat for yourself or work on yourself, say, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go do my own thing, forget about you guys, you're going to die in a day or two because you needed other people in your group to cook, to watch out for other animals or other people, or help you hunt. You couldn't do it on your own. So that cohesiveness, that socialism, so to speak, I think is a stronger instinct than the individual, greed that many people say.
Yes, but socialists have a leader. All I'm saying is that it does seem a bit utopian taking our times of technology and internet and the amount of opportunities and options that human beings are being offered, that they would actually go back like the Indians and self-govern themselves without actually, because each individual wants something more or something different. So it would be so much more harder for people to self-govern themselves.
Well, see, that's what I think. We're so, we go back to that quote that we were talking about earlier is, show these people that they need us. That was the quote from V for Vendetta, when the leader was, everyone was kind of going crazy, and he said, so they, like talked about on the news, all these crises and all this stuff, that you need government, otherwise the world's going to go crazy. But we do all the work. We build the roads. We teach our children. We work in the hospitals. We do all the physical labor. They just sit there and say, do this, as they collect the money or work with the banks, charging us interest, keeping us in debt. We do govern ourselves in a sense. We do all the work, and we just are led to believe that we need them in order to survive. But really, if they disappeared, of course, there would be some change of management, but you have to change the economic climate. Of course, if we're in a capitalistic world where we're fighting for each other for the basics of life, of course you're going to need some, one looking over saying you need to do this, you need to do this. But if you take away capitalism, and there's going to be more freedom for people. Right now, I don't think freedom is working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, trying to make ends meet, trying to pay off the bank, trying to pay a loan, trying to survive. I think freedom is because you're working for someone else. I think a freedom is choosing what you want to do for your life, working this job, having free time with your kids, having free time for yourself. I'm lucky in what I do. I get more free time, and I get to fight, and I get to spend time with my family, but I'm still working for somebody, and I know this, they're making profit off me, and I feel, I just feel for those people that are really in a bad situation.
Time for a short break now, but when we return with Jeff Monson, world-class fighter and activist, we'll discuss what it takes to challenge global corporations. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. We're here with Jeff Monson, MMA fighter and self-proclaimed anarchist. Good to have you back. All right, so you're saying you don't like conspiracies, and yet you're saying that governments are actually governed by corporations. But that's a conspiracy theory in itself.
No, I really don't believe so, because the banks really own the United States. The Federal Reserve, which is a misnomer because it has nothing to do with federal, is an institution of private banks owned by elite individuals who loan money to the United States for all the federal spending that we do, and we have to pay that back. The citizens have to pay all that money back with interest. So if you took all the American money and put it in a big warehouse, it would only account for about 4 or 5% of all the American money that exists, because if they loan $1 billion to the government, then that has to be paid back with interest. But where does that interest come from? It doesn't exist. It's just a theory.
But Jeff, wasn't it always like that? It's not like something that just happened overnight. I mean, even like a couple of centuries ago, obviously governments were financed or lobbied by rich people.
Yeah, well, 1913, after a lot of bank foreclosures or bank closures and a lot of economic crisis in the United States, the Federal Reserve was formed, and the United States has been under a prison ever since, and we will always be in debt. There's no way, if we paid back everything we owe with all the money, all our resources that we have, we would still be 95, 96% owing what we still owe right now in debt, and it will always be that way unless we change the system.
You know, talking about debt, the fear of what will happen to the U.S. debt actually holds countries around the world hostage because they're so heavily dependent on U.S. currency, on U.S. dollar. Do you think there could be some sort of opposition to that, to the debt ceiling being raised all the time?
Well, of course, what happens in the United States with, you know, on Wall Street or with our corporations affects the world economy, and you know, it vibrates worldwide. You know, something happens in the United States, but it's really controlled by the corporations and banks.
But what can other countries do about that? Can they resist the debt ceiling somehow?
They can, because they're the United States. Like I said, the United States is an empire. We have some trade or some tariffs enacted upon them, or some sort of deal. Our you know, corporations are going into their countries, and or vice versa. You know, exchange. You know, we're having free exchange of, you know, economic ideals, and nothing until the system has changed. These are always going to be conflicts. You know, people talk about the rise and fall of, you know, how the money currency is going, or, you know, we're in a recession now we're out of the recession. It's something that everything will be under control. We just got to ride the wave. The wave will never be smooth under capitalism, and people need to realize this.
But you talk about the change of system and, you know, I guess in a way about beating the corporations, but you are a MMA fighter. You, out of all people, you know what it takes to defeat someone, so you need to be equally strong. So if corporations are owned, if governments are owned by corporations, obviously the governments can't defeat the corporations. So who can? Who could stand up to corporations?
Well, the government is in with the corporations, so they definitely don't want to overcome them.
So who can actually stand up?
And it would take an enormous amount of education, and the internet has actually been fantastic in this way. Look at some of the situations we've had, like in Libya and Egypt. That was really made possible by the internet and people being on their cell phones, actually, and even Occupy Wall Street. And so people are becoming more knowledgeable, and they're realizing that they connect with other people. Some businessman from Manhattan is realizing, you know what, I have something in common with this farmer from Kansas, and they can connect and see each other's, you know, their social contacts. But it would take an enormous amount of education, as I say, and the people could shut this down in one day. If there was a general strike, world general strike, the corporations and banks would be at the mercy of the people, the 99.9% of people who do all the labor.
Do you really believe that could ever happen?
That would take, I said, an enormous amount of effort, and will that happen in my lifetime? You know, I can only hope, but that's why I like to, you know, we're talking now, and it's about educating.
Well, talking about education and internet access, I had a guest recently on Sophie & Co, and he actually said that American nation is the best entertained nation, but the least educated, the least informed, nevertheless. Yeah. Why is that? Is it because of the media, or just people can't be bothered and they're too lazy to know more?
Well, I think whoever this guy made a very good point, but they go hand in hand. When you're entertained by watching, you know, and I'm you know, guilty of this as well. I'm watching a football game on TV, then I'm not learning about my own situation. You know, why am I can't pay the rent this month, or why can't I this, or fighting for some injustice. You know, we have all these TV reality shows and what the Kardashians are doing, and some, you know, crazy this, crazy that, and we're entertained, but it keeps us. They like that. Not only does the media like that, the government likes that, the banks like that, because it's hard to protest when you don't realize what's going on, and when you're kind of happy just watching your show at the end of the night and relaxing.
I'm going to read out your quote from Twitter. We tolerate and often empower those who exploit, subjugate, coerce, oppress, and enslave us, yet look upon those asking for a handout in disdain. Have you thought about the human nature? Why is that we're that way?
I think that, again, that's the media, that's the culture we have. When we see someone on the side of the street asking for, you know, $1 or something, you know, to get by, to get a, you know, a piece of bread or something like that, we immediately think, well, they're not working, or they're lazy.
Are you talking about American culture in particular? Because I don't think every country around the world is the same way.
I think this is American culture specifically. we're talking about, the American dream. If you work hard enough in America, you can be the president, you can be a superstar, you can own a company. You just have to work hard enough. If you don't, then you're on the side of the street asking for bread, and people are going to look at you and turn away. But if you work hard enough, then you can have these things. But that's not true. They did a recent study on industrialized countries, and the United States was number 16 in social mobility. So the American dream, that if you just fight for what you want and work hard enough that you can achieve it, that's not true. If you grow up in the inner city and don't have the resources and can't get the education, so when you grow up you're not prepared for the world, you're at a disadvantage. So no matter how hard you work, if you don't have these tools and help growing up, you're never going to be able to achieve what you want.
Mm-hmm. Now, you, because of your profession, you travel around the world. Have you noticed how America's image has changed throughout maybe 2-3 years in the past, in light of Syria, in light of Libya, in light of NSA leaks? Have you noticed a shift in this image?
I think we had, under Bush, we were kind of referring to this earlier, we had a really bad view in the world, and now I think that view's softened a little bit, and people, I think, generally think of the United States as kind of bloated and lazy and kind of get what we want, and the entertainment, industrial capital of the world.
I mean, Libya, Syria, and NSA leaks, they really happened under Obama.
Yeah, but I think people under Obama, like I said, they have more. They think we're spying on the world, but we're not as, even though it's not true, as militaristic and cutthroat as we once were under Bush, and invading this country. I think we talked earlier about Bush saying we're going to invade you because that's the right thing to do, and God, help us do the right thing, and we're going to do it whether you like it or not. And under Obama, it's more we're going to spy or send some drones here and we'll make some accidental killings. Sorry about that.
You could actually see the reaction around Bush, because, I mean, a lot of people did dislike him. But when he said we have to invade, he had no doubt on his face. So it was like, okay, let's do this. Yeah. And then when President Obama is like, well, we probably have to bomb Syria, he did have doubts on his face. So right. Soon enough, you have Britain who backs out first, right. And then everyone else is just like, no, I think we shouldn't do it. So you could just read the doubt on his face as he was saying that America should bomb Syria.
Yeah. I actually think Obama has less support among leaders, as you're kind of referring to, especially our allies. Then I think Obama has less support than Bush did because of those reasons. But support among the masses of people, I think Obama doesn't have any more support or less support among them. I think it's just different. They're just seeing maybe some weaknesses in our, kind of a dictatorship, or what do you want to call it, but in the leadership that he's showing, they're seeing the.
Now, I know that you love Russia a lot, and I wonder why. Because, Russia, as great as it is, and I live in this country, has its own bunch of problems with whole scores of issues. Why do you love it so much?
Well, I always had a fascination with Russia and the people, and this is where the first modern social revolution in the world took place, 1917, when people, even Marx didn't predict it was going to be in Russia. He thought it was going to backward Russia. How could it happen there? It's going to be in Europe, industrialized countries. So it was a great event, and there's a lot of great anarchists that have come from Russia.
So you love Russia because of the great anarchists?
Well, that's fine, but people here have treated me very well, and when you have grown men coming off the street, men, and hugging you, and you can feel the emotion. Is
that why you want to be a Russian citizen? Because I know you're in a process of getting a Russian citizenship.
That's some of it, and I'm not proud to be. I don't think you're a citizen of a country just because you're born there. I was born in the United States. There's no, obviously no doubt, but I don't feel that is my home. That's not where my heart is. That's not where I don't believe in.
Do you not love your country?
I mean, what is a country? A country is a piece of land and people. There's definitely people in the United States that I love, and I think there's a lot of great people there. But I don't adhered by the government or the administration or the imperialism at all. And I'm ashamed to say, on a world, when I travel, like, oh, I'm a United States citizen, because it has so many connotations that go along with that. And I don't agree with, what our government's doing. So no, I'm not proud to be a United States citizen.
Jeff, it was great to have you on this program. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you, Susan.
That's all for now, folks. Our guest was mixed martial arts fighter Jeff Monson, and I'll see you in the next edition of Sophie & Co.